A family's darkest hour. Ned Quartermaine's fight for life and the "Well, that changes everything." The collapse. The afternoon at Bobby's had started like any other day in Port Charles. But it would become a moment that would haunt the Quartermaine family forever. Ned Quartermaine stood outside the restaurant, his face flushed with anger as he clutched his phone. The situation with Drew over the family heirlooms had pushed him to his breaking point. Everything, decades of family tradition, irreplaceable memories, treasured possessions, was about to slip through his fingers once again because of Drew's selfishness and manipulation. The boxes were supposed to go to the mansion. Ned fumed, barely able to catch his breath. His voice trembled with rage as he paced back and forth, his hand unconsciously moving to his chest. He could feel his heart pounding erratically, a sensation he tried to ignore. Stress and anger were nothing new to a Quartermaine. After all, they lived with drama as if it were oxygen. But this time, something was different. Drew appeared from around the corner, his characteristic smirk firmly planted on his face. "Relax, Uncle Ned," he said coldly. "I moved them to my place. Every single one. The heirlooms, the photographs, all of it. It's mine now. And there's nothing you can do about it." He paused, clearly enjoying Ned's growing distress. "Face it. The quarters are finished. I'm the one calling the shots in Port Charles now." The words struck like a physical blow. Ned felt his knees weaken. His breathing became shallow. His vision slightly blurred at the edges. This wasn't just about possessions anymore. This was about everything the family had built. Everything his parents had left behind. And Drew, that snake, was taking it all. "You have no right," Ned started. But the sentence never finished. A sharp pain suddenly exploded across his chest, radiating down his left arm like lightning. He gasped, his hand flying to his heart as his body began to fail him. The world tilted. His legs buckled beneath him, and before he could cry out, Ned Quartermaine collapsed onto the pavement outside Bobby's. A shocking discovery. Emma Scorpio Drake and Giovanni Puglieri had been inside Bobby's, finalizing the details of their plan to break into Professor Dalton's lab. They were deep in conversation, mentally preparing themselves for the moment of no return when Emma noticed something through the window that made her blood run cold. "Joe, look," she gasped, grabbing his arm and pointing outside. There, sprawled on the ground just outside the restaurant, was Ned. Motionless, his face contorted in pain and fear. His expensive suit was now dusty, his tie askew. He looked utterly vulnerable. Nothing like the strong patriarch of the Quartermaine family they had always known. "Oh my God, Joe!" exclaimed, immediately bolting for the door. Emma was right behind him. All thoughts of their mission momentarily forgotten. They knelt beside Ned, their young faces pale with panic. "Ned, can you hear me?" Emma called out, checking for signs of consciousness. Joe was already reaching for his phone. "Call now," Joe shouted, his hands shaking as he tried to remember CPR training from High school. Ned's pulse was weak but present. His breathing was labored. Desperate. Whatever was happening to him, it was serious. Within minutes, the sirens wailed through Port Charles. The ambulance arrived and trained paramedics took over. Their practiced efficiency, the only steady thing in a suddenly chaotic world. They placed Ned on a stretcher. Oxygen mask over his face, monitors beeping in urgent rhythm. The last thing anyone heard as they rushed him toward General Hospital was Joe muttering a prayer under his breath. The hospital's grim prognosis. The waiting room at General Hospital soon filled with Quartermaines. Brook Lynn arrived with Chase in tow, her face straw with tears. Olivia was there, her armor all Lulu, who looked like she might collapse at any moment. Michael arrived shortly after, his expression unreadable, but his presence steady. The family had been through loss before they had just buried Monica. After all, but Ned was different. Ned was their anchor. Dr. Portia Robinson emerged from the intensive care unit. Her scrubs wrinkled, her eyes heavy with the weight of difficult news. The entire family turned toward her as she approached, their hopeful faces immediately crumbling when they saw her expression. "How is he?" Brook Lynn asked desperately, stepping forward. "Is he stable? When can we see him?" Portia took a deep breath, her professional demeanor barely masking the gravity of what she was about to say. "Ned suffered a severe heart attack. The damage to his heart is extensive. We performed emergency bypass surgery," but she paused, choosing her words carefully. "His condition is critical. His heart is severely weakened, but he'll recover, right?" Lulu's voice was small, almost childlike. "With treatment, with therapy, he'll get better." Portia exchanged a glance with her colleague. She wanted to give them hope, but she owed them honesty even more. "I'm afraid the damage is too extensive," she said quietly. "We've done everything we can medically. Now we can only make him comfortable and give his family time to be with him. I recommend you all prepare yourselves for the worst. His heart is simply too damaged for him to recover from this." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Ned Quartermaine, the stoic patriarch who had weathered so many storms, might not survive this one. A moment of weakness. A moment of clarity. Hours passed. Ned drifted in and out of consciousness, his body hooked up to machines that beeped and hummed with mechanical persistence. Finally, in the late evening, he opened his eyes. His vision was foggy. His body felt like it weighed, but for a brief moment, he was aware. Nursing staff came and went, checking his vitals, adjusting medications. The family had taken turns sitting vigil beside his bed. But at this particular moment, it was quiet. Ned was alone with his thoughts, and the steady rhythm of the heart monitor, a rhythm he feared would not last much longer. The door opened quietly. Tracy Quartermaine stepped into the room. Ned's eyes widened slightly. Tracy had been in France, taking a well-deserved break. After everything with Monica's will. The fact that she was here meant someone had called her with the news. She looked worried, her famous composure slightly shaken. But when she saw Ned's eyes open, she moved quickly to his bedside. "Tracy," Ned whispered, his voice barely audible. "How did you don't try to talk," Tracy said, taking his hand. Gently, she pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down, not letting go of his hand. "I'm here. I came back as soon as I heard. The doctors briefed me on everything." For a long moment, they just sat together in silence. Tracy and Ned had their differences over the years. The Quartermaines always did, but there was a deep bond between them, forged by decades of family loyalty and shared struggles. "Ned," Tracy said finally, her voice breaking slightly, "there's something I need to tell you, something I discovered before I left for France. I've been carrying this secret and I can't let you leave this world without knowing the truth." Ned's eyes focused on hers and she could see the question forming despite his physical weakness. Tracy took a deep breath. "Monica's will, the real one, not the forged document. Ty found it in those boxes at Lulu's house. And Ned, the truth is Monica left her estate to you. The mansion, the assets, everything. She didn't leave it to me. She didn't leave it to Michael. She left it to you." Ned's eyes widened. But Tracy wasn't finished. "I forged the will," Tracy continued, her voice steady but emotional. "I made everyone believe that Monica had left everything to me. I was trying to protect the family, trying to keep the mansion in the right hands. But I let my pride and my need for control override what Monica truly wanted. Ned, I'm so sorry. You deserve to know the truth. You deserve to make the choice about what to do with the family legacy." Tears ran down Tracy's face as she confessed this secret that had weighed on her. Ned's hand squeezed hers weakly, and though his breathing was labored, she could see understanding in his eyes. Perhaps even forgiveness. "You needed to tell me." Ned managed to whisper, "Thank you. Thank you for telling me before." He didn't finish the sentence, but they both knew what he meant before he was gone. The end of an era. Ned Quartermaine died that night with his family gathered around his bed. Tracy was still holding his hand. Her head bowed. The machines that had kept him alive were finally silenced. The heart that had been damaged beyond repair simply gave out. The loss was devastating. Brook Lynn wept uncontrollably in Chase's arms. Olivia held Lulu as she collapsed into grief. Michael stood silently, his face a mask of pain. Even Joe, who had only recently learned he was a Quartermaine, felt the weight of losing the man who had welcomed him into the family. Tracy remained by Ned's bedside long after he had passed, her tears finally coming freely. In that moment, surrounded by the beeping of machines being turned off and the quiet sobs of family members, she felt the burden of her secret lift slightly. She had told him. She had given him the truth, even if it was in his final hours. As dawn broke over poor Charles, the Quartermaine family faced a new reality. Ned was gone. Another generation had passed into memory, but the family would endure. They always did. That was the Quartermaine way. And Tracy, for the first time since discovering Monica's will, felt a strange sense of peace. She had done the right thing, even if it had come too late. Next, we will learn about the shocking medical crisis that has rocked the Quartermaine family to its core and the devastating ripple effects that threaten to destroy one of Port Charles' most beloved marriages. The unexpected medical emergency, the stunning collapse of Ned Quartermaine, sent shockwaves through the general hospital fanbase, leaving viewers absolutely stunned by the sudden turn of events. Few people anticipated that this beloved patriarch would find himself clutching his chest in agony, his face contorted with pain as he crumpled to the floor of the very mansion that has been his family's stronghold for generations. The heart attack came without warning. A terrifying medical emergency that instantly transformed what was already an explosive confrontation into a life-threatening situation that could change everything for the Quartermaine clan. What made this crisis even more horrifying was the complete lack of humanity displayed in those critical moments. The medical emergency unfolded in the most dramatic fashion possible, with Ned's body betraying him at the worst possible moment, leaving him vulnerable and desperate for help that should have been immediate. The intensity of the chest pain, the sudden inability to breathe properly, and the overwhelming sense of dread that accompanies a cardiac event all combined to create a nightmare scenario that no family should ever have to endure. Drew's unforgivable betrayal. The circumstances surrounding Ned's collapse make the situation even more disturbing and morally reprehensible. Drew Cain's actions before and during this medical crisis have revealed a darkness in his character that many viewers never imagined possible. His decision to essentially loot the Quartermaine mansion, ranging for all of the family's precious belongings to be delivered to his own residence, demonstrated a level of vindictiveness and pettiness that shocked even his harshest critics. The gloating that followed was almost cartoonishly villainous as Drew stood there with a smug expression plastered across his face, taking obvious pleasure in describing how he had systematically stripped the house of its contents. But the true measure of Drew's moral bankruptcy became crystal clear when Ned began showing signs of distress. As Ned's anger escalated in response to Drew's taunting revelations, his face began to wring, his breathing became labored, and the telltale signs of cardiac distress became impossible to ignore. The moment when Ned's hand flew to his chest, his eyes widening in terror as he realized what was happening to his body, should have triggered an immediate response from any decent human being. Instead, Drew made a choice that will haunt him forever. He turned his back and walked away, leaving a man potentially dying on the floor. This wasn't a split-second panic reaction or a moment of confusion. Drew had time to assess the situation, to recognize that Ned was in genuine medical distress, and he consciously chose to abandon him rather than call for help or attempt any form of assistance. The callousness of this decision cannot be overstated, and it represents a point of no return for Drew's character that will have lasting consequences throughout Port Charles. Brook Lynn's mounting crisis. The impact of Ned's heart attack will reverberate most powerfully through his daughter. Brook Lynn, who now finds herself in an incredibly vulnerable position, emotionally and psychologically. Her world has already been turned upside down by her mother Louise's recent departure from Port Charles, leaving a void in her support system that has yet to be filled. Brook Lynn has always had a complicated but deeply loving relationship with both of her parents, and losing access to her mother's guidance and comfort during this uncertain time in her life created an emotional gap that now threatens to become a chasm, with her father fighting for his life in a hospital bed, hooked up to monitors and machines. Brook Lynn faces the terrifying possibility of losing another parent. The fear that grips her heart every time she enters his hospital room, wondering if this will be the moment when his condition takes a turn for the worse, is a burden that no daughter should have to carry alone. She needs someone strong and dependable by her side. Someone who can help shoulder this crushing weight and provide the emotional support that will get her through the darkest hours. The question that hangs in the air is whether that support will come from her husband Chase or from someone else entirely. This medical crisis has created a test for their marriage. One that will reveal whether their bond is strong enough to withstand the pressures that threaten to pull them apart. Chase's dangerous obsession. Detective Harrison Chase has been spiraling into an increasingly troubling fixation that threatens to destroy everything he has built with Brook Lynn. His obsession with Willow Renthos and her legal troubles has consumed his attention, his time, and his emotional energy in ways that should alarm anyone who cares about him. What began as concern for an ex-girlfriend who found herself behind bars at Pentonville has metastasized into something far more intense and potentially damaging. Chase has devoted countless hours to investigating Willow's case, convinced that she is innocent and determined to prove it no matter what the cost. He has pored over evidence, interrogated witnesses, and pursued leads with a fervor that goes far beyond professional duty or friendly concern. The way his eyes light up when he talks about Willow, the urgency in his voice when he discusses her situation, and the single-minded focus he brings to her defense all point to an emotional investment that crosses dangerous lines. Brook Lynn has begun to notice the warning signs, recognizing that her husband's attention has drifted away from their marriage and toward his ex. The late nights spent on the case, the phone calls taken in another room, and the distracted looks during their conversations have all accumulated into a pattern that cannot be ignored. But what Brook Lynn doesn't yet know is even more damaging. The image of Chase and Willow holding hands in front of Alexis Davis, a moment of physical intimacy that suggests their connection goes deeper than Chase has been willing to admit. That hand-holding incident represents a betrayal of trust that could shatter their marriage beyond repair. It wasn't a casual touch or an accidental brush of fingers, but a deliberate act of comfort and connection that crossed the boundaries of appropriate behavior for a married man. When Brook Lynn eventually learns the truth about this moment, as she inevitably will in the small world of Port Charles, the consequences will be devastating. Joe's potential return. The Quartermaine family crisis may finally provide the catalyst needed to bring Joe fully into the fold, healing wounds that have festered since the revelation of his true parentage. The young man has been struggling with the knowledge that Dante Falconeri and Olivia Quartermaine are his biological parents. Processing the complicated emotions that come with discovering your entire origin story was different than you believed. The anger, confusion, and sense of betrayal that accompanied this revelation created a rift that has kept Joe at arm's length from the family that wants so desperately to embrace him. But Ned's heart attack changes the equation in fundamental ways. Faced with the possibility of losing a family member, the petty grievances and hurt feelings that have kept Joe away suddenly seem less important. The urgency of the medical crisis has a way of clarifying what truly matters, stripping away the ego and pride that often prevent reconciliation. Both Dante and Olivia have been waiting patiently for their son to come around, hoping that time would heal the breach and allow them to build the relationship they all deserve. Brook Lynn in particular would be thrilled to have Joe step forward and claim his place in the family during this difficult time. She has always had a generous heart when it comes to expanding the family circle, and she recognizes that Joe's presence would bring comfort to Olivia while also adding another layer of support for everyone involved. The prospect of one big happy family united in their concern for Ned and their determination to see him through this crisis represents a silver lining in an otherwise dark situation. The Dante factor. As Olivia struggles with her husband's medical emergency, she will need strong support from her children, and Dante will absolutely step up to be there for his mother. His sense of duty and his deep love for Olivia will ensure that he remains a constant presence at the hospital and the Quartermaine mansion, providing both practical help and emotional support during this traumatic period. But Dante's increased presence in the family orbit creates an interesting dynamic when it comes to Brook Lynn. These two share a history that predates both of their current relationships. A teenage romance that burned bright before life took them in different directions. The connection they once shared never completely disappeared, even as they moved on and built lives with other people. Now, with Chase preoccupied by his Willow obsession and Brook Lynn desperately needing someone to lean on, Dante will naturally be right there offering comfort and understanding. The chemistry between them hasn't faded with time, and the shared family connection through Joe only strengthens the bond they're rebuilding. If Chase continues to prioritize Willow over his wife during her father's medical crisis, he may inadvertently push Brook Lynn straight into Danny's arms. The foundation for an emotional affair, or even something more, is being laid brick by brick with every moment Chases to spend on Willow's case instead of supporting his wife. A marriage in jeopardy. The tragic reality is that Chase and Brook Lynn were once a truly great couple. The kind of partnership that made viewers root for their happiness. They complemented each other beautifully, with Chase's steady presence balancing Brook Lynn's passionate nature and her creativity bringing excitement to his sometimes too serious approach to life. Their love story overcame numerous obstacles and seemed destined for a happily ever after that would stand the test of time. But marriages require constant attention and care. And Chase has allowed his focus to wander at the worst possible moment by failing to make Brook Lynn his #1 priority during her time of greatest need. He is actively pushing her away and creating space for someone else to fill the role he should be occupying. Every time he rushes off to deal with something related to Willow instead of sitting by Brook Lynn's side at the hospital, he sends a message about where his true priorities lie. If Chase doesn't wake up and recognize what he's losing, this couple is headed straight for divorce court. The writing is on the wall, and unless something dramatic changes in Chase's behavior immediately, the marriage that once seemed so solid will crumble into dust. It's a heartbreaking trajectory for two people who genuinely loved each other. But sometimes love isn't enough when one partner stops showing up when it matters most. The Quartermaine family has always known how to fight, and they do it with theatrical flair and passionate intensity. But beneath all the drama and conflict, they love each other fiercely and protect their own. Ned's heart attack has reminded everyone what's truly important, and the family will rally around him with unwavering support. The question now is whether Chase will be part of that supportive circle for Brook Lynn, or whether he'll continue down his current path and lose his wife forever.